Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in South Australia say that they are searching for two unknown suspects behind a completely senseless theft at a coin-operated car wash this week, a crime which netted the thieves just $20, despite causing thousands of dollars worth of property damage. According to reports, the incident began in the early morning hours of June 11th when the two unknown male suspects arrived at the Car Wash King's Car Wash in the Adelaide suburb of Frueville. After riding up to the business at around 1:30 a.m. on bicycles, the men were captured by surveillance video cameras heading over to a pair of coin-operated vacuums. It was then that one of the two men pulled out an angle grinder and got to work on one of the machines, while the second suspect acted as a lookout. Despite ostensibly coming equipped with the tools for the job, the thieves soon learned that making off with the cash inside of the coin-operated vacuum would be tougher than anticipated. There were 6 thick locks just on the main outside panel of the vacuum, and even after all of these were cut off, the suspects still couldn't get the panel door open. They first tried to pry the door open with a pair of pliers, but when that didn't work, they resorted to using brute force. It took the combined strength of both men to finally rip the door open. Even then, though, the suspects' work wasn't quite done. The coin box inside the vacuum was also equipped with a lock, meaning that the thieves had to cut a total of 7 locks to finally get to the cash. After all of that work, it's estimated that they made off with a measly $20 in coins. Though the thieves managed to score very little for their effort, this isn't to say that the crime was of no significance. According to the man who owns the car wash business, repairing the damage done to the coin-operated vacuum will likely cost him upwards of $6,000. At the time of this recording, police have not been able to identify either of the suspects behind the ridiculous crime, and are now asking for help from members of the public. Anyone with information about the case is being asked to contact South Australia Police. Authorities in the South African province of Gauteng say that they received a novel excuse from the driver of a luxury vehicle this week, after he was caught traveling well over 200 kilometers per hour on a local highway. According to reports, the incident took place sometime last weekend, when police in the northern part of the province, just outside of the city of Pretoria, saw a driver in a Mercedes-Benz G63 ripping along a section of the N1 highway, traveling south. The man was clocked by police traveling at 215 kilometers per hour, or about 134 miles per hour, just shy of double the highway's posted speed limit. When police pulled over the 41-year-old driver and asked him why he was driving so dangerously fast, he immediately offered an excuse. According to him, he was being chased by hijackers. Unfortunately for the 41-year-old, police weren't buying what he was selling and were unable to find any credible threat to the driver or his vehicle. The man was arrested and was subsequently taken to a nearby police station on charges of reckless driving, negligent driving, and exceeding the prescribed speed limit. In additional reports we came across about this story, police stated that the 41-year-old driver was just one of 7 people to be arrested last weekend on the same stretch of highway for driving anywhere between 166 and 200 kilometers per hour. However, it's unclear if they, too, were being chased by invisible hijackers. Representatives from London's Metropolitan Police say that they are investigating the murder of a 28-year-old man this week after his body was found on fire at a local park. According to reports, the case began at approximately 4 a.m. on June 13th, when police were called by members of the London Fire Brigade to the scene of a blaze in Bellevue Park, in the town of Northolt. When they arrived, authorities found the body of a man, later identified as 28-year-old Subir Badede. While investigators were initially hesitant to call the case a homicide, instead referring to Subir's death as suspicious, That all changed a few days later when authorities announced that they had charged two men, 35-year-old Samuel Stewart and 32-year-old David Pilgrim, with the murder. Though exceptionally few details are currently available about the circumstances that led up to the crime, police have said that they used witness interviews and CCTV footage to establish who was in the area at the time of the crime. Though we can't say for sure, based on these statements, this may be the way that the two suspects were linked to the case. Aside from this, very little has been released to the public at this time, and investigators have not even clarified whether Subir was killed in the fire or whether the blaze was set after the fact to destroy potential evidence. Instead, they have referred to the situation as a, quote, complex and fast-moving investigation. At the time of this recording, Stewart and Pilgrim remain in police custody. A plea hearing has been scheduled for October 7th. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week International series, then you might remember that at the beginning of last month, we brought you the story of Marcelo Pecci, a high-profile and well-known Paraguayan prosecutor who was assassinated while on his honeymoon in Colombia. Marcelo had traveled with his new wife Claudia Aguilera to the popular tourist island of Baru for what was supposed to be a week-long honeymoon in paradise at the upscale Decameron Hotel. In addition to their marriage, the couple was also celebrating the fact that they were expecting a baby, with Claudia announcing the pregnancy on social media on the final day of their trip on May 10th. However, that same day, tragedy would strike, when as Marcelo and Claudia were relaxing on the private beach of their resort, they noticed a jet ski pull up nearby carrying two men. Without a word, one of the men got off the jet ski, pulled out a gun, and fatally shot Marcelo twice in the chest. If you'll recall, at the time of our last report, sketches of these two suspects had been circulated by police. However, their identities remained a mystery. At the same time, though, there was widespread speculation that the murder had been prompted by Marcelo's work as a prosecutor in his native Paraguay. In particular, Marcelo had a reputation for going after money launderers and drug traffickers, and had been an integral part of a large operation earlier this year that broke up a criminal organization that smuggled drugs from Colombia and Bolivia through Paraguay and into Europe. Well, this week, fresh reports emerged from both Colombia and Paraguay that came close to confirming this theory, announcing that 4 people had been sentenced in connection with Marcelo's murder. According to reports, while authorities have not been able to determine who exactly masterminded the plot to kill the prosecutor, they have been able to connect at least 6 people to the case who were allegedly paid a sum of around $500,000 to carry out the crime. It's believed the Brazilian prison gang First Capital Command, a major cocaine exporter, was responsible for coordinating the murder, though they may not be the sole organization involved. As for the 6 people linked to the case, 4 of them took a plea deal this week that saw them plead guilty in exchange for getting their sentences reduced from 47 years to 23 years. The 5th suspect has pleaded innocent, while the 6th is currently at large. At the time of this recording, the investigation continues. A 22-year-old Indonesian woman is reportedly suing her married partner of 10 months this week and trying to get a criminal case going at the same time, after she says she was the victim of a marriage scam and that her so-called husband turned out to be a woman. According to reports, the situation began last May when the alleged victim, who has been referred to in local media reports only by the initials NA, received a match on a dating app that she signed up for. The person introduced themselves as Anaf Ararif and claimed to be a man who had recently converted to Islam and was looking for a wife. NA was impressed by Anaf, who presented himself as a US-trained surgeon who also had business connections in the coal industry. The two soon became a couple, and 3 months later, they decided to get married. Almost immediately, however, NA's parents began to notice red flags. Despite claiming to be a doctor, Anaf never produced any documents proving his educational background, and when the time came for the wedding, also couldn't produce the necessary civil documents required to get legally married, Instead, Anaf and Na decided to settle for a type of ceremony that was recognized by their religion but not the state, and tied the knot, so to speak, in August of 2021. After the wedding, the red flags only continued as far as Na's parents were concerned. Again, despite Anaf's supposedly impressive credentials, the new couple moved in with Na's family, and Anaf immediately began requesting increasingly large sums of money. However, whenever Na or members of her family would reach out to anyone that knew Anaf, they were reportedly quick to reassure them, insisting that he was the real deal. Eventually, Anaf and Na moved away together to Lahat, in the province of South Sumatra, though did not tell Na's parents where they were moving. Though now seemingly independent, Anaf's suspicious behavior did not stop once at the new home. Instead, Na was reportedly mostly confined to the house, while Anaf took greater control of her finances. Na now alleges that at one point, Anaf even tried to murder her, attempting to get her to jump into a river, despite knowing that she was unable to swim. The whole situation apparently finally blew up, starting in April of this year, when Na's worried parents finally managed to track her down with the help of police. By this time, they had learned that Anaf's entire identity was a fraud. Not only did he not have any of the education or business connections he claimed, he was in fact not even a man. Anaf was really a woman named Ira Yani. By the time the con unraveled, Na's family had reportedly been scammed out of 300 million Indonesian rupiah, or roughly $20,000 US. If you're wondering how Na and her family were never able to tell that Yani was a woman, apparently they did have their suspicions, but she took steps to fool them. She explained her appearance by saying that she suffered from a hormonal disorder, and according to some reports, turned off the lights and blindfolded Na anytime that they were intimate. As for the legal proceedings against Yani, it appears that she is currently only the target of the lawsuit brought by Na and her family. However, authorities say that they may soon bring criminal charges against her, including charges for educational record fraud, which supposedly carries a sentence of up to 10 years in prison in Indonesia. At the time of this recording, the situation is still developing. A truly disgusting story was reported out of Japan's Aichi Prefecture this week, where authorities say that they have now pressed charges against a 20-year-old school employee after she was accused of mixing human feces into a school lunch late last year. According to reports, the disturbing situation took place on October 8, 2021, when the principal of a school in the city of Okazaki did a taste test of that day's student lunches about 30 minutes before mealtime, and noticed that the food had strange discoloration and an off-putting odor. As a precaution, the principal canceled the meal immediately, and the food was submitted for testing. To everyone's horror, samples showed the presence of E. coli bacteria, which had come from human feces. While there was initially serious cause for alarm considering that the lunches in question came from a central kitchen and were delivered to a number of schools in the area, further testing showed that the contaminated food was only at the original school. This proved that the feces had been added by someone at this specific school, significantly narrowing the pool of suspects. After a full investigation, authorities were led to a 20-year-old female employee of the school, who they now say was the culprit behind the gross crime. Unfortunately, though, or maybe fortunately in this case depending on your outlook, reports do not mention what the woman's motive was or how she was able to pull off the crime. On June 13th, the woman was officially charged with fraudulent obstruction of business. We'll admit, it's not the first charge we would have thought of for a case like this, but hey, at least it's something. As for the principal who had the horrifying misfortune of tasting the food, apparently he was physically fine, and thankfully he was able to sound the alarm before anyone else had any of the lunch that day. Apparently, having a high-ranking school official taste the day's lunch is not uncommon in Japanese schools, though reports we came across gave conflicting reasons why this is the case. Whatever the reason, though, it appears that in this instance, it ended up being a pretty worthwhile tradition. A 53-year-old convicted Korean killer was reportedly handed a rare death sentence this week after he was found guilty of the murders of 2 people that occurred at the end of last year. According to reports, the incident began on December 4th, 2021, when 53-year-old Kwon Jae-chang and a 40-year-old male accomplice met up with a 50-year-old female acquaintance at a building in the city of Incheon. During that time, Kwon strangled the woman to death before he and the other man loaded her body into the trunk of her car. The 2 men then stole the woman's jewelry and used her bank card to withdraw cash from an ATM, all while still in possession of her body. Evidently deciding that he could be the only one with knowledge of the crime, the following day, Kwon reportedly turned on his 40-year-old accomplice, killing him too, and burying his body on a hill near a beach on Yeongjong Island off the coast of Incheon. In a rare decision following his conviction this week, a district court handed down a sentence of death to Kwon, saying that he appeared to have no possibility of reformation and showed no signs of serious remorse. During the decision, the court stated, quote, "Recovery of humanity could not be expected from the accused," saying that it was seeking to prevent further crimes from Kwon. According to reports, while the death penalty is still legal in South Korea, the decision is unexpected since the country has been effectively categorized as abolitionist in practice. The last execution to take place there happened in December of 1997. Kwon now reportedly joins a group of just roughly 60 other people in the country who have received a death sentence, though it's unclear what this will mean for him in practice. That being said, it appears as though he's not expected to face the executioner anytime soon, as part of his sentence states that he must wear a tracking device for the next 30 years. Authorities in the Taiwanese city of Hsinchu say that 8 people are dead, including 4 children this week, after a horrific arson attack that was allegedly carried out by a family member. According to reports, the incident began shortly after 10 p.m. on June 15th, when members from the Hsinchu City Fire Department received calls about a serious fire at a building at the intersection of Dongdan-Zongyang roads. Authorities arrived to find the building, which was a tire shop on the first floor and a residence on the second floor, completely engulfed in flames. Because the ground-level shop was full of tires, it was significantly more difficult to put out the blaze, with some reports stating that as many as 160 firefighters and 25 vehicles responded to the scene. Even then, it took nearly an hour to fully extinguish the flames. When emergency responders were finally able to enter the remains of the building, they tragically found the bodies of 8 people. These were said to be the shop owner's wife, daughter, 2 daughters-in-law, as well as 4 grandchildren, ranging in age from 1 to 10. It didn't take long for investigators to determine that the fire was no accident. Empty gasoline canisters were found at the scene, and the tire shop owner had witnessed his 31-year-old son, Chen Yen-xiang, pouring some of the accelerant onto the flames. The shop owner reportedly tried to save his family after discovering what his son had done, but was helpless because by this time the building was essentially a wall of fire. Chen was arrested at the scene. According to reports, the entire tragic incident stemmed from an incredibly petty incident earlier that evening, when Chen had gotten into an argument with his mother over washing some dishes. After that, he allegedly went to a nearby gas station and bought the fuel used in the attack, before starting the fire and dousing the flames. Further reports state that Chen had had a difficult relationship with his family for some time. He had previous criminal convictions for theft, fraud, and destruction of property, and had previously worked with his family at the tire shop, though quit after multiple disagreements with his father over how to run the business. Police say he would frequently disappear from the family's lives, only to return at unexpected intervals later on. At the time of this recording, an investigation is ongoing. However, Chen remains in police custody. That brings us to the end of this edition of Crimes of the Week International. If you're a fan of the new series, don't forget to tell us in the comments section below. While you're there, make sure to subscribe to Crime Zone for more true crime content like this, making sure to hit the notification bell to stay up to date with our latest videos. Thank you for watching.